the end of the first Matrix movie, the first in the trilogy, Neo has this awakening experience where he dies and comes back to life and is suddenly able to be one with the Matrix, and then he looks around and can see all the code in everything. Most of you, I'm sure every single one of you knows this scene. We've seen it a million times. And of course the Matrix is probably the most referred to metaphor or allegorical kind of collection in terms of a single movie, both in the Truth Movement and by the New Age movement. And that's not an accident, considering that the Matrix absolutely does preach a completely Gnostic gospel. But it's interesting. I mean, I used to have a video game years ago, back when I played video games, about the Matrix, and you were Neo and you moved along, and one of the abilities that you could unlock was this ability to see everything in code, and they just called it code vision. So this whole analogy of code vision just harkens right back to the things I've been talking about recently with the LSD and the DMT and this whole mystical experience that lends itself to pantheistic belief. And it's just another representation of the exact same idea, just kind of being presented in a slightly different way. Just a little slightly different creative twist, but it totally ties into things that Terence McKenna has actually said quite straightforwardly, talking about the universe's code. And so this is an analogy that has been used by proponents of this belief system, by this New Age, quantum reality type belief system, long before the Matrix movies came out. So it's not like the Wachowski sisters came up with it, and it ties back to Philip K. Dick and different science fiction inceptions of this idea, no pun intended. But why am I talking about this? It's just kind of crazy because of the video that I put up around a week ago, and now on Jim Carrey and the tetrahedrons is now, it's pushing like 60,000 views within a week, and that's definitely not typical for one of my videos. But the reason is, apparently, it's kind of a crazy example as to just how popular this idea is. A lot of it has to do with, you're talking about a celebrity, and this, it's just weird though, because you never quite know what specific topics or videos are just going to kind of take on a life of their own. And so, the vast majority of the people that are watching and commenting are definitely not people that are familiar with any of my other videos. And so many of them are totally in agreement with Jim Carrey and totally pushing back against what I was saying in that video. And it just kind of goes to show like how pervasive this idea of cosmic consciousness and all of reality just being broken down into some sort of baseline construct, which is basically just sort of a reworded version of Eastern philosophy and occult philosophy. It's nothing new, but this is becoming more, and so many of these people are getting behind Jim Carrey and supporting him, and truly believe that he is speaking things that are in opposition to the establishment and Hollywood and the New World Order and all that stuff. And so many people in the Truth Movement sincerely, truly do believe that the esoteric truths that are embedded within the whole flower of life concept and the ancient mysteries and all the stuff, that this is sort of the main opposition to the powers that should not be. That this is the antithesis of the Satanism that is at the core of the one world government system and the Illuminati and all that. When in reality, it is exactly what they are pushing. And so this is why I'm coming back to the Matrix example, because it's just one that everybody knows. It's so, it's like beyond cliche, right? But that's the whole point, is that everyone and their mother is at least familiar with the Matrix movies and the basic concepts behind it all. But then the question is, so is this not teaching the same simulation theory, construct, the same simulation theory idea that is being pushed by, from mainstream scientism, So check this out. A friend sent this to me recently. This is an article from a couple months ago in July from physicsastronomy.com. As you look at this is just a straightforward science, astronomy. The headlines are physics, astronomy, quantum mechanics, about universe, space exploration technology. It's not some new age metaphysical type website here. This is just straight science, quote unquote. Bear that in mind when you read this. But the title of the article is Quantum Consciousness. The universe may be one entity and aware of itself. And I'm just going to read a little bit. What exactly is consciousness and how is it generated? How and why it exists, and what's the ultimate cause of consciousness? These are some major questions that scientists are looking for their answers. In today's world, the mystery of consciousness is a challenge for physicists, cognitive scientists, and neuroscientists. There are a few theories that try to explain the consciousness. One of the most accepted theories is materialism. This theory says that consciousness is generated by matter, i.e., the firing of neurons inside the brain. The second theory is of mind-body duality. This is probably more often known as religion or spirituality. Here, consciousness is distinct from matter. It is part of an alternative characteristic of the individual, which in religious expression we might call the soul. Then there's a third option, which is gaining ground in some scientific societies. Panpsychism. According to this theory, the entire universe is occupied by consciousness. Panpsychism is currently a matter of great debate among physicists, neuroscientists, and other researchers. One must come to the understanding at some point during this debate that everything we experience is strained through and interpreted by our mind. Does that make you think of the Matrix? The cosmos doesn't exist at all, or at least not without some type of consciousness witnessing it. In some physics circles, the dominant theory is some kind of proto-consciousness field. So let's get scientific here and move toward quantum mechanics. Of course they're going to move towards quantum mechanics. In quantum mechanics, particles don't have a certain shape or precise location until they are observed or measured. Is this a system of proto-consciousness at play? According to the late physicist and philosopher John Archibald Wheeler, it might. He's well known for inventing the term black hole. In his opinion, every part of matter comprises a bit of consciousness, in which it rivets from this proto-consciousness field. He calls this theory the participatory anthropic principle, which posits that a human observer is a key to the process. Of this, Wheeler said, "We are participators in bringing into being not only the near and here, but the far away and long ago." In his view, much like the Buddhist one, nothing exists unless there is a consciousness to apprehend it. So there you go. They're openly admitting that this is essentially affirming the same idea as Buddhism. Neuroscientist Christoph Koch of the Allen Institute for Brain Science is another supporter of panpsychism. Koch says that the only theory we have to date about consciousness is it's a level of awareness about oneself and the world. Biological organisms are conscious because of their approach to a new situation. They can change their behavior in order to navigate it, blah, blah, blah. In this view, Dr. Koch is attempting to see if he can measure the level of consciousness an organism contains. He'll be running some animal experiments. Okay. And then UK physicist Sir Roger Penrose is yet another supporter of panpsychism. Penrose in the 80s proposed that consciousness is present at the quantum level and resides in the synapses of the brain. He's famous for linking consciousness with some of the goings-on in quantum mechanics. And then at the bottom they actually have a video of Penrose talking about consciousness being separate from, physicality and all this. So panpsychism. Theoretical physicist Bernard Hayes in 2006 suggested that consciousness is produced and transmitted through the quantum vacuum, or empty space. Any system that has sufficient complexity and creates a certain level of energy could generate or broadcast consciousness. Dr. Matloff got in touch with the unorthodox German physicist and proposed an observational study to test it. What they examined was Parengo's discontinuity. This is the observation that cooler stars like our own sun revolve around the center of a Milky Way faster than hotter ones. Some scientists attribute this to interactions with gas clouds. Matloff took a different view. He elaborated in a recently published piece in the Journal of Consciousness Exploration and Research. Unlike their hotter sisters, cooler stars may move faster due to the emission of a unidirectional jet. Such stars emit a jet early on in their creation. Matloff suggests that this could be an instance of the star consciously manipulating itself in order to gain speed. Observational data shows a reliable pattern anywhere Parengo's discontinuity is witnessed. If it were a matter of interacting with gas clouds, as is the current theory, each cloud should have a different chemical makeup, and so cause the star to operate differently. So why do they all act in exactly the same way? Though it isn't much to go on, the unveiling of European Space Agency's Gaia Space Telescope, whose mission is to map stars, may provide more data to further support or weaken this view. On another front, Dr. Matloff posits that the presence of a proto-consciousness field could serve as a replacement for dark matter. Interesting. Neuroscientist and psychiatrist Giuliano Tononi at the University of Wisconsin proposes a slightly different take on panpsychism, called integrated information theory. Here, consciousness is a manifestation with a real physical location somewhere in the universe. We just haven't found it yet. Perhaps this heavenly body radiates out consciousness as our sun radiates light and heat. Dr. Tononi has actually put forth a metric for measuring how much consciousness a thing has. The unit is called phi. This translates into how much control a being can enact over itself or objects around it. The theory separates intelligence from consciousness, which some people assume are one and the same. Take AI, for example. It can already beat humans at all kinds of tasks, but it has no will of its own. A supercomputer which can enact change in the world outside of a programmer's commands would therefore be conscious. Many futurists from Ray Kurzweil to Elon Musk believe that day is coming, perhaps in the next decade or so, and though we should prepare. So yeah, good grief. Panpsychism. And hopefully everyone can see that panpsychism is essentially nothing more than pantheism, just being repackaged and represented through the avenue of scientism. It's a lot of isms. But once again, we come back to quantum physics as being, it's science. It's the scientific field that validates all these concepts of ancient mysticism and the mystery schools. The universe being one giant mind, and all of us are just fractalized fragments of that universal mind. Well, that's pantheism. Whether you want to call it God or just the all mind, the cosmic mind, the cosmic consciousness, and consciousness is just information that can rewrite itself. I mean, they just, right there at the end, they use AI as an example, and it's amazing how AI itself, as a concept, serves as a perfect analogy for the same Gnostic pantheistic idea. I mean, even in The Matrix and in other ones like the Terminator movie, where it's this whole idea of a single AI consciousness that spans a whole race of AI consciousnesses, right? So where's the distinction between the original AI and then all the, the AI software consciousness? Basically it's like the whole universe is software, if you can think of it that way. So right there, it's actually seeding the idea of pantheism. And they're interchangeable. It's just a different style of description. It's the sci-fi version of, or you can go the mystical route, you can go the science route. It's the same ultimate destination, and that's why I keep coming back to the same topic again and again, because it's not just something that's limited to people who are talking about blatantly new age things or, meditating and using crystals. That's a huge thing, and it's growing, and people who are straight up getting involved in witchcraft and sorcery and doing DMT and doing all these things, right? We see that just exploding exponentially in Burning Man and all the rest. But that whole flower of life concept that I was talking about, that symbol really encapsulates the same thing that we are now hearing coming from the quote-unquote scientific community more and more as well. And it's crazy, because I've been thinking about how, the more I sort of really understand what is at the core of this pantheistic quantum, concept and the flower of life concept, and how the grid, the matrix, this whole symbol, this whole belief system is just at its core, like probably the most AntiChrist thing that you could, it is by definition absolutely and undeniably anti-Christ in every sense of the way. When we go to the Bible and we see in Acts 17 where it says that, Paul is talking about Jesus, who he's telling all these philosophers about, and he's, through him we live and move and have our being. So he is the underlying essence of all of our reality. He created everything, and he holds it all together. In Colossians 1, he says he holds all things together. In him all things were made, and without him nothing was made that was made. So Christ himself, the creator, the eternal, the I am, separate from creation, is the very antithesis of this idea of an underlying construct, an underlying code, an underlying consciousness that permeates everything that we are a part of, because it essentially then inserts ourselves into the place of Christ in his role of creator and sustainer of reality and of creation. This teaching, this symbol, this ideology, this spirituality, this quantum pseudoscience basically turns everyone who buys into it into a little antichrist. We're a big collective antichrist consciousness. Collectively replacing Jesus' rightful place as king and redeemer and creator and sustainer and judge of all things with ourselves. And it is the epitome of idolatry. It is the epitome of blasphemy. And that is why, this flower of life symbol, the flower of death, there's just no other way to describe it. Because it represents the idea that we can unlock the mysteries and the knowledge that God has of the universe, of the creation, of ourselves. We can become God. We're all little pieces of God. The universe is just God unfolding and reorganizing itself into little clusters of tetrahedrons, as Jim Carrey said. And this is the Antichrist gospel. And I think we're just going to keep seeing more and more of it. And this is why I keep bringing it, because it's everywhere. It permeates everything. It's not just the Matrix movies. Look at Star Wars, look at the Harry Potter, look at, Marvel, look at anything. It is Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, Jason Silva, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye, any of these guys that you want to throw stones at as part of the system, they're all actually embracing and preaching the same underlying concept. So stop and think. Stop and look at it from this perspective and understanding that this is what the elites believe, this is what the Illuminati believes, this is what your TV and movies and science journals and everything else, your sock puppet truthers like Joe Rogan and so many others. It's the same. They're all preaching the same message. That God is in you, that God is in everything. Everything is God. It's a lie. Jesus is God. Jesus Christ, who died and rose again and conquered sin and death. He is the one who holds the keys. He is the one who holds the cosmos in his hand. And he's the one who's going to make all things new. Not by us seizing back some ancient knowledge of the quantum architecture of the universe or the quantum conscious nature of all things, so that we can reprogram reality back to the way it should be. That's essentially what this teaches, and it's a total lie. It's the original lie. All right. Thanks for listening.